Hello and welcome to another episode of Team Blush. Today we are going to be installing these LED lights into the instrument cluster of the S13. Over the holidays, my sister actually gifted these to me, so ever since then I've been pretty excited to get them installed. As you can see in the video right now, the original incandescent bulbs in the S13's instrument cluster leave a little bit to be desired in terms of the intensity of light coming from the gauge cluster at night. And of course, because my sister knows that I am a fan of the color pink, she got me some pink LEDs. So I am excited to see how they look. I've seen some pictures online and I think it's going to look really good. And as a bonus, it will match the head unit that I put in the car prior to installing these LED lights. So without further ado, let's get stuck into it and get these LEDs installed in the car. First thing that we are going to do is get rid of this piece of trim right here that holds down the carpet. And prior to undoing this trim and taking it out, I have undone the negative side of the battery, and I have also taken the driver's seat out of the car. For one, this is just for the YouTube video so that I can get you inside the car to view what I am doing on the dashboard. But also, if you're doing this alone, it's only 4 bolts and it's going to make things a lot easier to maneuver around when you are doing this process. We have gone ahead and gotten that piece of floor trim removed, and I'm just going to go ahead and clean up this little area of the door sill right now. It's just a little dirty and I know it's there, so I'm going to go ahead and get that done while I'm in here messing with other things. To get to the next piece of trim, which is this one right here, I'm going to go ahead and take off this little dummy pedal. I don't think it's actually in the way of this piece of trim, but while doing this process, I want to be careful of scratching my trim pieces. I actually have pretty nice trim pieces on the S13, so I want to keep them as well intact as I can. So I'm just going to go ahead. It's 3 bolts, takes just a second, and it may save just a scratch or two on this little trim piece here. Got the dummy pedal out of the way, and to get this trim piece off, it looks like it's just going to be 3 screws. There is one right here in the door sill. There is one right here just where it meets the carpet, and one back here, back where that dummy pedal was. I'll go ahead and get those 3 off, and I'll see you in a second. Just a little side note, with these few trim pieces that I've already taken out, I am keeping the screws together as best as I possibly can. I'm putting them back in the same holes that they've come out of and setting them aside in the order that they came out of. You may think when jumping into a simple process like this that you'll remember the bolts, you'll remember the screws and all that stuff. You won't. I've done it multiple times. I've thought the exact same thing. You won't remember those bolts. So just put the screws and bolts back in the holes and put the trim pieces in order just off to the side. It'll help you when you're putting it all back together, I guarantee it. The next piece of trim that we need to remove is this piece right here that goes underneath the steering wheel bezel. For this trim piece, there are 7 bolts or screws depending on which type of tool you wish to use. You can use both, so just pick your poison. Let's go ahead and get these off, and when we drop this trim piece down, we need to be careful because there are some wires attached to it for the light underneath here, and I believe a few other things. So let's go ahead and get that done. Okay, well, that was actually simple enough. I wasn't expecting that. I know some videos say that you need to take off the 2 screws for the hood latch cable, but that doesn't seem to be the case, and I had my suspicions, so there you go. 2 less screws that you have to worry about. While I'm in here, this looks pretty nasty, dusty, and whatnot, so I'm going to clean this up, and I'll get right back to you. Okay, we have cleaned up that trim piece. Not necessary, but I like to clean as I'm going along. The next piece that we need to take off is the bottom section of this steering wheel trim. To do this, we need to take off 6 screws. You can see these 2 right here. On the other side, there are another 2, one right here and one right here. And then hidden underneath, inside of these little pockets, you get a flashlight really quick. Inside these little pockets, you can see, just barely if I can get the camera there, that screw right there needs to get undone. And then on the opposite side, there is another screw that you need to get oh, well. Oh, it looks like I'm missing mine. Okay. Well, I will need to get a screw that fits in there because I don't like having missing hardware. So, give me just a second to get these 6 screws out, and then I will go about figuring out how to get this clamshell of a steering wheel trim piece off. I'm not too terribly sure how this is going to work, so you'll be there to learn with me. Okay, we went ahead and got those, well, 5 screws out. There's supposed to be 6, but I only had 5. And it looked to me, when I was taking it apart, that it started to split. And the only piece that seems to be holding it on is this little ring around the mechanism lever that tilts the wheel up or down. So I am just going to get a trim removal tool, and I'd imagine I just stick it right behind, stick it right behind it or something. Try the other edge and pop it out. Trying not to scratch up my dash. Can I just pop it out with my finger? Oh, there we go. Okay. And then just rotate it to get it off. Yep. Cool. So it looks like that was the last piece holding this little clamshell together. And I'd imagine you can just pry it apart now. Looks like it's holding on by right here. Oh, jeez. Okay. Hopefully I didn't break anything. Be careful when you are doing this. Yeah, it doesn't look like any tabs broke. Man, that was sketchy. Well, it looks like that bottom part comes off, and then we'll be able to just pop this off the top. Maybe. Have to tilt the wheel down. Alright, I'm going to set you aside really quick while I figure this out. I'd imagine the shaky camera is kind of annoying. So, I'll be right back once I figure this out and show you what I did. So, while looking around for a solution to getting the top section of this little clamshell off, I noticed underneath the dashboard, on the steering column itself, it's going to be very hard to see, but right here, and on the other side, behind some of these wires, right back here, yeah, there we go, you can kind of see it. Right back here, there are 2 bolts. You need to undo both of those bolts, and then the steering column will drop down about an inch or 2, and that will give you just enough clearance to get the top of that clamshell off. And I'll give you a little demonstration of what that looks like. Alright, I got those two bolts out, and as you can see, the steering wheel does come down just a little bit more, and you can really simply just pop that little top cover off. And we'll set that aside and move on to the final trim piece, I believe. Okay, so we have reached the final piece of plastic trim that we need to remove to get to the instrument cluster. Now, I know this one is the hardest one for people to deal with. I believe on this one, we are going to have to remove these 3 buttons, and then the 2 cruise control buttons, the illumination, and the overdrive and windshield wiper fluid buttons have plugs on the back side that we will need to remove. At least I think so. I haven't looked at this just yet. And then up here at the top, there are 2 screws that we will need to remove. But first, I'm going to look at getting these buttons off and see just how much of a pain those are going to be. Okay, we removed the headlight switch from its plug, and man, these are a huge pain to get off. I ended up using a flathead screwdriver just to push in the little connector that holds on to the switch, and that seemed to work. Just be careful with it. All this stuff is so brittle, it's very sketchy when you are taking it out. Right, so I'm going to try and get the plugs off of these 2 switches on the right before going to look at these other ones. Sorry about the skip forward in time right there. I did end up getting these 2 switches out, and then when I checked my phone had actually gone over the file size limit for the video. What I ended up doing for these is underneath the dash you can actually push that wiring loom forward just a little bit so that you can pull these switches out just enough to where you can get to these 2 plugs, push them in, and undo these 2 switches. These ones I actually didn't have to use a flathead screwdriver for, so they were a lot easier than this one. Next up, I'm going to actually ignore these buttons really quick and get these 2 screws on the top of the bezel. And I'm just using this extension with a screwdriver tip on it. With those last 2 screws out of the top of the plastic trim, there are 2 plastic clips on the bottom of this plastic bezel trim assembly, and if I undo those and pull out, it should come free. I think I might have to get a plastic trim removal tool up on this top section to help pull it out. Yeah, there we go. So it is free to the point of catching on these switches I was talking about earlier. Right now I am trying to get the plugs off of the back of the windshield wiper light and the overdrive off light. Unfortunately, to film this, it would be even more precarious than the transmission swap video that I did a few months back. So I'll show you really quickly what 2 plugs I'm trying to get to, and then I will show you when they have been taken off in the future, because I will not be able to get this on video. Underneath the dashboard, you can see right here these two plugs. They are extremely brittle. It's going to be very sketchy to take them off, and this space is so tight that I just will not be able to show you as I actually take them off. But these are the two switches that I am currently trying to undo, and then I hope after getting these two out, I will be able to rotate that bezel and take the instrument cluster out. Alright, again, I apologize. This bezel is the devil. It is so hard to get out. I thought that this was going really smoothly, and of course it's always one thing, and this is that one thing. As I had shown, I ended up pulling this switch first. You can just pull it out. It'll feel like you're going to break it, I guarantee it, but it just pops out, and then you can get to this plug on the back side and undo it. Then you come to the right side, undo these two buttons just the same as you did with this one. Undo these two plugs right here and here from those buttons slash switches. And then comes the hard part, where you have to get the plugs out of these two lights, this button slash switch, and these two buttons slash switches. I really can't tell you much more than get under the dash with a pair of pliers. I think I ended up using 3 different pairs just to try and keep from destroying them. On the left side, there's this blue one, there is this black one, and then on the right side, there is a clear one and a blue one behind it. Super hard to do, but once you get all of those out, then you can pull the steering wheel down. The steering wheel column has a little bit of flex. You can pull it down just enough that you can pull this whole bezel out, and we finally have access to our instrument cluster. So I will show you how to get the instrument cluster out. It is child's play compared to what we just did, so I will show you that. To get the instrument cluster out of the dash, all you need to do is undo 3 screws, one right here, one up here on this white tab, and on the right side right over here. Once you have those out, you can pull the instrument cluster out towards the steering wheel, but be careful because it still has 3 plugs attached to it, and we will need to remove those. With the instrument cluster undone, you can pull it out just enough to see the plugs on the back side. It looks like we have about 3 or 4 different ones. So carefully undo those. And with that, we finally have the instrument cluster out of the vehicle. Alright, and here we are. All of that work to get this instrument cluster out, and here it is. All we need to do to change the lights is turn it around, and the lights that we're going to be changing are the ones with these light brown sockets. All you have to do is rotate them until you hear a click. Then you can pull them out just like that. This little blue incandescent bulb is what we are going to be changing out. So just simply pull it out like that. Take your aftermarket LED light and plug it right into where that incandescent bulb was. And it doesn't matter which way you plug these in. The only thing that does matter is that when you do end up plugging these sockets back into the instrument cluster, they will only light if they are in the correct orientation. So what you need to do is probably one by one plug in your LEDs, take your instrument cluster back to the car, and make sure that each one individually is lighting up as you put them in. If they are not, then all you do is take it out, turn it around, and plug it right back in. One of those directions will work unless the LED is non-functioning, so it's best just to go one by one and make sure that your orientation is correct, and two, that your LED is actually working. So I am going to go ahead and replace all 6 of my light sockets, and then I will go ahead and put the dash back together. And once I have all of that done, I will take you into the cockpit of the S13 to look at the new pink LEDs. I hope they're going to look really cool because this process was a little bit more intensive than I actually thought it was going to be. And with the magic of video editing, the entire interior of the S13 has been put back together, and I have seen what the final product looks like. I went into this thinking that the LEDs were going to be a lot brighter than they actually are. As you can see in the video right now of the finished product, they may look a little bit brighter in the video, but they are just about the same intensity as the original OEM incandescent bulbs. I am surprised. If you are wanting to do this yourself, you might just go with a clear white LED light, or make sure you are looking for a light that is marketed as super bright or something along those lines. I also did notice that the LEDs, while being marketed as a pink LED, they look to me more like they are purple, which I'm super fine with. I still love the look of it, but again, that's something to think about if you are wanting to do this yourself. If you made it this far into the video, thanks a ton for watching. We actually just hit over 100 subscribers, and that number really, I don't know if it is set in. If there were 100 of you in a room, I don't know if I would actually be able to address all of you in a way that would be meaningful. So this platform right here is really cool, and I think having 100 of you watching is really crazy. So maybe we can get more in the future. If not, I'm completely fine with all 100 of you watching these videos, and thanks a ton for watching. I believe that the next project of the channel is going to be getting those wheels that I showed off a long time ago onto the S13, but I kind of bounce all over the place with ideas for the channel, so who knows what the next video is going to be. I hope to have it out here very shortly, and with that, I guess I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.